What's going on, Vikings fans? Welcome back to the Purple and Gold Bar Show. I am your host, Supreme Overlord, aka Mr. AI Man 3000, aka Mr. Purple and Gold Bars at your service. As you can tell, my voice is still a little bit raspy. I'm still dealing with a little bit. It was a Dayquil kind of put me to sleep on Monday, trying to over medicate, trying to stay on point. But we were able to get back and wake up in time for the live with the Real to Sports podcast. So I do apologize. We are going to get back at it this week. We got, I kind of lightened my schedule this week so I could kind of recover a little bit. And so as a result, I'm going to have more time and I'm going to be able to go live a little bit more to make sure we get all the content out, because last week was definitely a wash and I do apologize for that again. But we need to recap week 11 here. I know the vertical stream is a little bit janky. I was trying to figure out how to reorganize this. So like the thumbnail was at the top with a different view and then be able to get my Chiron on the screen, but it just wasn't working out. So after this, I'm going to go look for some tutorials and stuff online to figure out how the heck to work this out. So we're going to get it figured out, but first we got to get into these games. Ooh, it is a fun time of the year. You know, November, December is one of the best times for football because this is when people's belts start tightening up here. They start preparing and start playing more uh playoff style football, you know, and that's why the thumbnail goes expected here for these three teams, because we're going to talk a little bit about these three teams and then we'll go into each one of the games one by one here, giving you my thoughts on each game. But before we do that, let's get the intro started. There we have it, guys. So yes, expected is definitely what I have to say about the Vikings Bears game, Seattle Ram games, and the Lions Eagles game, because it's exactly what I imagined going into this. If you guys checked out my preview when it came to the Minnesota Vikings versus Bears, I basically dismissed all the hoopla that everybody's going into, diving into the weeds. Oh, well, the defense can do this, and the offensive line, and this, and this, and the wide receivers. Because at the end of the day, what I said, we're basically the exact same team. We're just in different paths in for our team's growth and development. Right now, Caleb Williams is basically not really redoing year one, because year one is still in the books. He got that playing experience, and some people are going to say that he developed a lot of bad habits and Ben Johnson is fixing them. So I feel like this year is more of like a retooling year for him, where he's definitely trying to make the jumps in growth so that he becomes consistent. He doesn't rely on his off script moments and the chaos that he can create, because that doesn't always work, right? Ben Johnson is more of a guy that wants to be in control of everything. He wants everything to run the way it does, because if it does, then he theoretically he's going to have the best outcome possible. And when you have a quarterback that's constantly flipping the script and rewriting it mid play, it can put a lot of wrenches in his game plan and what he wants to be doing consistently as the game progresses, right? So he's more in the retooling year. And then when we look at JJ McCarthy and our Vikings, we're in the exact same situation. We're in a growth development stage. We're not at the point, neither one of these teams are in the point where you can honestly pick them to make a deep playoff run. They're so inexperienced and flawed, and so many things need to be worked on to where we know what's going to happen if they do make the playoffs, right? What they don't know won't get them. And when you start getting into that higher level of teams, their inadequacies are definitely going to show. When it comes to the Bears, they're easier strength of schedule. When you're in the last place schedule, it's pretty easy to look good, right? And so when we get into the late part of November and December, we're going to see what they're truly made of when teams start buckling down and playing them harder. We'll see if that trend still continues. But in historically speaking, that's usually not the case. Young teams usually go in there, and the most experienced teams capitalize on situational football and putting them in situations where they're going to struggle. And because they haven't faced that, it becomes more of a learning experience, and usually they get hampered. That's why we've never seen a rookie quarterback win the Super Bowl. And why it takes a couple of years. This is why we say when we look at the normal trajectory of a rookie quarterback before they start contending for Super Bowls, outside of Tom Brady, of course, it's usually around like that year 3, 4, 5, where they're actually rounding out and becoming capable of handling that adversity in the playoffs, right? And so that's why I said when we look at this team, these two teams, we're basically looking at the exact same team, just on different timelines. And the outcome is going to be determined based on how good the quarterback play is for each team. Now, as we saw, both quarterbacks weren't great. We didn't see the Caleb Williams that everybody has been hyping up all the first 10 weeks, saying, oh, he is the next coming. He's fixed everything. Look at this. What's going on here. We're going to definitely going to make this a freaking season to remember. And you know what? I guess in one aspect they will, because it's going to be the first season in a long time where they've started this strong and look like they have hope, unlike the last couple of years where it's been abysmal, right? So they're right in that way. But when it comes down to it, both quarterbacks were definitely not good. The difference is that when you take the perspective of these teams are in growth and development, that's exactly what you're going to expect. Caleb Williams still struggles against good defenses and good teams. So when we look at JJ McCarthy, he is still developing consistency. We see a lot of flashes, good things, despite all the bad things that he did and all the things that went wrong, drop passes, all that. You can name the litany of things, but I think it doesn't really matter because it's all a part of development. Because at the very end of the game, when it mattered most, he was able to put together a drive to go ahead 17-16, and unfortunately our special teams was a little leaky there on that last kick return and gave up a massive return, which allowed Caleb an easy path to a field goal to take the win, which is, exactly what I said. I was like, I wouldn't be surprised if it comes down to a field goal. I think I predicted 27-24 or 24-21. The numbers, the score, it wasn't really what mattered to me. I just knew that it was going to be an ugly game regardless of what team you were rooting for, and it was going to come down to the very end, seeing which quarterback can kind of pull it out the fire at the very end. I think JJ McCarthy did a valiant job at trying to put that final drive. It just sucks that because the defense and had spent so much time on the field, they were just really tired and they just couldn't perform like they could at the beginning of the game. And it's part of the course. And Caleb Williams, the entire game looked pedestrian. Let's be real. We didn't see any of these so-called flashy plays, and we didn't see this elite arm strength. We didn't see high-level decision-making. It was struggle on both sides of the field for each quarterback. That's why I said it's expected. Both teams that are in the midst of growing and developing into a team that they can consistently be considered a playoff team, and then on the road to become a playoff contender where we're actually making playoff runs. We're still a few years removed. Both of these teams are, right, and the what I've been saying prior to the season starting is that I believe that this season is going to be a roller coaster, and we're going to see a lot of ugly wins, ugly losses, atrocious losses, atrocious wins, and that occasional euphoric win, because that's what development looks like, especially for a type of player that JJ McCarthy is. Now, when you take that perspective of it, I'm extremely happy. I saw everything that we needed to see from JJ McCarthy. I saw heart. I saw him never give up. Traits that when you get to the playoffs, your quarterback needs to have. Because if you have a guy like Jared Goff or Sam Darnold, as soon as the things get tough, they crumble under pressure and the game gets out of hand. And before you know it, it's a blowout. And that's something that we don't want to experience, especially after we experienced it in week 18 last year and against the Rams this in the postseason, right? We don't want to get to the playoff just to make the playoffs. We want to get to a stage where we can actually compete in the playoffs, and we need to grow and we need to let our young quarterback become that quarterback. And yes, last week, yeah, he got all the experience he needed. He had to throw for a ton of he got uh put behind the chains, a lot of false starts, a lot of things that ruined the momentum of the running game, which forced JJ McCarthy to throw the ball a lot, which guess what? In the playoffs, in big game situations, it's never going to be ideal. And he is going to have to do that one way or another. So he did throw a lot last week, and I think he put up a decent amount of yards, and he put up a valiant effort, and he had a lot of growing mistakes that are actually lessons in disguise, because I don't know about you. I'm trying to think of a relatable thing, but like, let's say when you start playing a video game for the first time, right? When you make that first mistake and you've never played that, that game before, and you go, "Oh man, I didn't know that was going to happen." The things that you don't know are going to bite you in the butt, and JJ needs to go through that in order to go, okay, I need to analyze, incorporate that, and start growing and developing strategies so that next time I face that situation, I can overcome. And Caleb Williams is in the exact same situation. He has to take all the lessons that he's learned that last year and this year and apply them to the scheme that Ben Johnson wants to play in, because he can't just rely on going back to ad-libbing and making things work, because we saw yesterday when the Vikings defense put it on him, he couldn't pull out that magic like we saw in previous weeks. And it's because, and that's a sign of what he is going to face later on in the season. And if they make the playoff, well, they'll probably make the playoffs now based on probabilities and numbers sake, unless they totally melt down and completely lose the rest of the games, which I'm not sure is entirely possible, but I think they're definitely in line for a wild card spot. But once they get to that stage, it's going to be totally different, and that those kind of things aren't going to be helpful. They're actually going to be detrimental, because teams are going to force that on them, and they're going to be prepared for those situations like we were, and make him struggle. So both quarterbacks are doing exactly what they need to be doing. They're experiencing the hardships and the struggles that they need to in order to become the quarterback that that they need to become. Right. So I don't remember in the first 5 games of Caleb Williams' career, him going on the road twice and beating divisional opponents. I don't remember him beating the Lions in his first 5 starts, especially when last year they were, as the Lions have been pretty decent the last couple of years. So last year and this year, I don't think he's been able to do that. I think this year, when he's experienced so much more than JJ, he let them put 52 on him. So when you struggle like that, it just goes to show that there's different aspects of these two quarterbacks, right? I'm banking on the mental maturity and the ability to win and overcome and rise to the occasion as something that's worth building upon and developing that foundation. Regardless of what you guys want to say, there's going to be games where we're going to get teams that are really, really good at stopping the run, and no matter how hard we want, they're going to they're going to stop us from running the ball, and JJ's going to have to put the cape on and throw the ball a ton. And last week he got a little bit of a taste of that, and he put up a ton of yards. He made a ton of mistakes, and he's going to grow from that. And without going through those experiences, he's not going to develop that way. And if we shelter him and go, hey, we just need to run the ball a ton and prevent him from, if he only throws 15 passes a game, we can win. Yeah, but you know what? That handicaps his development. And I don't know about you, but I want to develop into a team in which we contend for Super Bowls, not just pretend in the playoffs. I'm sick and tired of, running with veteran quarterbacks like Kirk Cousins or Sam Darnold or whoever you want to name, Sam Bradford, Case Keenum, all these guys, in order to just get embarrassed in the playoffs, because in the playoffs, it's a different type of football, and we need a guy that can elevate in those situations. He just needs to develop a foundation, which when he does elevate, he can remain consistent, accurate, and poised. So then when it all comes together, he looks like the franchise quarterback that I think he's going to become. You know, so when it comes to this game, I didn't really take many notes. I was just really more happy about how the season is going. I think that going forward, every single game, I'm not really going to be having any expectations. Like I said, I didn't peg this team for Super Bowl. I never said that before the season. I said that we'd be lucky to make a wild card team, and I pictured our high at being 12 wins and our low at being 8 or 9 wins. And I think that we're exactly on track for that. And all the lessons that we learned this year are only going to make him stronger going forward for the rest of this year and especially next year, right? It'd be beautiful if we could sneak into the playoffs and get him some playoff experience so he can grow more from those experiences as well. But we have to play the cards that are dealt with us. You know, we're seeing JJ McCarthy play in games in November that he should have been playing in September and October, you know, when teams are a little bit more, you know, the belt is loose a little bit because, you know, they can get, you know, they can, give up a game or two here and not be too affected by it, right? Or, you know, there's still a little bit of that rust, you know, that comes from going from the off season to the regular season, and they're not being able to get to up to par, right? So when we need when JJ needed to have those big growth development games, he is now experiencing during the harder part of the season where teams are starting to buckle down and starting to eye a playoff run and making it a lot harder on anybody they face, right? So it is part of the process. It sucks that we had to deal with so many injuries, but like I say, having those injuries, I think, are going to actually pay dividends later on as well. When we are in year 2, year 3, when we're actually progressing into becoming a playoff team and having more playoff success, we're going to have injuries. We're going to have injuries late game in the season. And because we experienced what we did at the beginning of the season, it's going to give us experience to draw upon so that we can come up with game plans faster that are more effective based on what we've experienced at the beginning of the season. So all in all, just like I said last year, guys, I said, I don't know how many times I said this. I feel like I said that I feel like Sam Darnold is definitely going to be doing really well, but when he gets to the playoffs, I just don't think he has it. I don't think we have a Super Bowl run in it with him. And then he fell apart, right? Just like I anticipated, because he just hasn't had the time to work on that aspect of the game, which I think he's going to face this year and next year. And before we start actually seeing growth in the postseason to where we can go, oh, no, you know what? He might actually have something here. He might actually be dangerous. So we need last year all the experiences that we learned. We had games where we came out hot and we had multiple turnovers and we got massive leads and then we struggled in the second half. Guess what? This season we're more of a second half team than we are our first half team. We've adjusted from the lessons that we learned. There were games where we shot ourselves in the foot. The Jacksonville game, if I'm not mistaken, where we just kept screwing up and Sam made a ton of mistakes, and then we ended up pulling it out of the fire and winning. It just went, and then all the other things in between, the loss of our left tackle, bringing in a replacement tackle, and just doing the best that we could. All those situations that we faced last year gave us the experience and the strength, the mental strength to be able to never give up and always fight, which is why this team always keeps us in it every single game, regardless of how bad it looks, right? Before the season, I said, hey, I think this roster and the coaching and everything is definitely a top tier roster. And I think that they can definitely keep us in games and give us the opportunity to win despite JJ McCarthy's growing pains. Because I said, all I'm expecting from JJ this season is flashes and as well as a lot of growing pains. And regardless with those growing pains, because we have learned so well at how to face adversity and overcome it, I feel like the team is always going to keep us in it. And sometimes here, sometimes not, JJ's actually going to pull it out. And we saw a huge game against the Lions, which in a developmental year, if that doesn't give you confidence of the trajectory that we're on, I just don't know what will, you know. And the fact that this team continues to keep us in games. And the fact that JJ, unlike last week, wasn't able to complete a comeback drive, he was able to do it this week. It was then on our special teams and defense to kind of prevent us from having to rely on stopping or for having to rely on them to stopping the Bears from coming away with a field goal. That's what happens when you're in a developmental year. We're learning how to overcome those situations. Last year, that was the biggest factor with us, right? We'd get into situations where we'd come up with big leads or whatever the fact was, and then we'd leave too much time on the clock. And a lot of people were complaining about clock management this and clock management that, and it's just a thing of execution and being prepared in situations in situational football that we just weren't there yet. And for the most part this year we've done a pretty decent job at that, and it culminated against the Lions where normally we would have messed up. Sam Darnold would have went to go hand off the ball to Jordan Mason and all of a sudden been panicked and took in a sack for a loss there. But JJ was able to scramble for a 5-yard pickup. And then where Sam Darnold would have, instead of throwing to Jordan Naylor, he would have stared down Jordan Addison or Jettas and forced up a 50-50 ball for it to get batted down or miraculously be caught and extend the play. We would have ended up giving a bunch of time left on the clock and then lost out because of that, because we've seen that happen a few times last year where we just couldn't close out games. And this is another example of that. And we came close, which is something to be super happy about. Now, yeah, so as a result of this game, I'm extremely happy. I'm happy of how I saw our team play, even though it was rough at times. We were able to bring it back, and had we come up with a block at the very end, or frickin' they wouldn't have been able to get that kick return, and we would have held them to a 3 and out or something like that. I think everybody would have been extremely happy and saying, "Holy moly, man! Can you believe that? As bad as it looked at at certain points in the game, we still won. Oh, we're on our way." But yeah, it doesn't end up that way, and everybody's going to be, throwing anybody and everybody under the bus, because that's just what emotional fans do. And I get it. I'm not going to hold anybody against it. I'm not going to, you know, throw shade or anything like that. It's just what it is. That's what fans do. And if I'm completely honest, when I'm watching the game and my inner fan wants to jump out and be frustrated by what things are happening, I have to refocus and be like, hey, we're not a playoff team. We're not a Super Bowl caliber team yet. We're in year 1 of JJ's development. Come on now. Let's be real. Let's be realistic. I've trained a ton of people, and I can see a natural when I see it, or virtuoso, or whatever, a guy that comes in and you just tell him what to do, and he just somehow flips the switch and figures it out in his head. JJ's not that. I know what he is. He's one of those resilient learners, I guess you could call him, where he's very good at a lot of things and he can pick up a lot of things. He's introspective. He does the work, but also he needs to learn through his mistakes as well, which is why you see him improve in certain areas and then other areas kind of suffer. It's the classical resilient learner that you're going to see, right? We've seen. You've probably been in school and seen a lot of people like this, where some people just never study, just freaking come in here and go into class, go into tests, and be like, "Hey, I didn't even open the textbook this season." They go in, they open the test, and they get a 90 on it. And you're like, "How?" And I was like, "I don't know. I just pay attention in class. It's not that hard, guys." Then there's other guys that have to sit there and study hours upon hours and go through everything and go through learning everything in order to get, a 75 or an 80 or an 85. And it is what it is, right? And then there's other guys that no matter how hard they put into practice or how much studying they do, they just can't get more than a 50 or a 60. It is just what development looks like for different types of people. And I'm extremely happy at the process that JJ is going through. He has to experience these things. He has to learn through example, through experience, and that's exactly what he's getting. He's gotten a game where almost everything went perfect for him when it comes to the game plan, and he rose to the occasions when it mattered. Even though he struggled in that Lions game, all the right moments he elevated like he was supposed to, and he wasn't inaccurate, and he completed when he was supposed to. And then we've also seen games where he struggled for entire 3 quarters. And then in the fourth quarter, lights up and he turns on another gear and he's able to win games in historic fashion. And then we've also seen games where everything goes wrong. And even when he is rising to the occasion and doing the right things, it just doesn't pan out for him. And that's just the type of learner he is. If you guys haven't checked out Vocal Vike and the interview with his quarterback coach that he had from when he first started at age 12 all the way up until college, there's a lot of insight to how this young man thinks and his development process. One of the stories that made me go, whoa, is there was an interview that he had in college where a media presser that he had, and when he went up to the podium and started talking, and the reporter started asking him questions, he replied with their first name and their publication, because nobody asked him to, but he spent the time learning every reporter's name that was going to be in their publication, and showed them the respect that he had. And that's kind of the type of dedication to hard work, or dedication to preparation, dedication to doing the right things and doing the hard work in order to elevate certain areas, right? Because a lot of football is focusing on what you can control, right? So all the false starts, all the procedural play, the mechanics in the pocket, footwork, decision making, the way that he reads, like, all those things are within his control. And so if he's consistently putting that type of work in, and that work ethic is there, that just means that over time he is going to develop and have the growth that we want him to see. It's just not going to be on the timeline that we want. We're all fans. We want him to be pro ready, and after 2 games be looking like Tom Brady, because that's just what every team wants, right? Every single fan that's ever had a team that drafted a high top 10 pick always goes, oh, this guy's the guy. He's going to go out there and he's going to be perfect, and he's never going to look back. He's never going to struggle, and we're just going to be Super Bowl after Super Bowl after Super Bowl. And that's just not the reality of it. The main outliers are Brady and Mahomes, and every other high draft pick there has never had a 1-to-1 development stage or stages to any other quarterback. All the quarterbacks from history, from the greats, Joe Namath, Bradshaw, Ben Roethlisberger, great quarterbacks like Joe Flacco, all these guys struggled a lot, through a lot of interceptions at the beginning of their career, and then became into something because they learned through the development process that was placed in front of them. Nobody gets the exact same path. I wish that we had prime Belichick, prime Josh McDaniels, prime New England's organization behind JJ right now, and so that was able to give him the insights and push him the way that he needs to in order to succeed like Brady did. I wish we did, but it's just not going to be the case with him. And it is what it is. We're going to grow. He's going to become the guy that he is going to become. I think he's going to be a stellar franchise quarterback in this league. The ceiling is extremely high on this kid, and the work ethic is going to carry him to that. And I think we're going to see a lot more growing pains, I'm not going to lie, throughout the rest of the season, but we're going to start seeing consistency start to form. And I think by the end of the season, we're going to look and be like, holy crap, he's looking more and more like a consistent quarterback than we thought he would, based on all the meltdowns that we're seeing right now. So have some patience, let the guys go. That's why I never criticize, oh, well, they should be doing this, they should be doing that. No, what they need to do, what they need to do is just figure it out, and they're going to figure it out the way that they figured it out for the Lions game. Sometimes it's going to be great, sometimes it's not going to be great. Sometimes the other team is going to make it extremely hard for us to actually pull off the game plan and make it look good. Sometimes we're going to have ugly wins, and sometimes we're going to be getting some heartbreak losses, and that's just part of the development stage. Now, moving on to Sam Darnold and the Seahawks. Man, expected is definitely what is the first thing that comes to mind between the Seahawks and the Rams. It seems like to me that Sean McVay is still in a little bit of is still in Sam's head. 4 interceptions, man. As good as close as they came to bringing it back, it really wasn't that close because they could have essentially blown out the Rams had everything gone right. If those 4 interceptions didn't go and those drives ended up playing out the way that they should have in theoretical football land, they probably should have blown out those Rams. But playoff Sam showed up, and this is what I said. This is why I didn't want Sam Darnold, and this is why I said that the Minnesota Vikings absolutely made the right decision in moving on from Sam. Because I don't know about you guys, I don't want to end up with 14, 15, 16 wins on the season just to go in on the divisional round and have Sam Darnold throw 4 interceptions and us lose and look like the laughing stocks. Oh, such a great team, 14 wins, and you can't do nothing in the playoffs. I don't want that narrative. I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to be put through that agony again. So I'd rather go through the agony of watching a young man develop and grow into the quarterback that he needs to become and deal with all the lumps and bruises that go along with it than deal with losing with Sam Darnold this year. And then if they would have signed him for 3 years, losing with Sam Darnold next year, and then waited to see what JJ had, and then waste the latter half of his rookie contract, right? So I'd rather grow and go through the trials and tribulations. I'd rather go through the mud than have a nice clean path all the way to the playoffs just to get embarrassed. And yeah, it's just not it. I think that this is going to be an insight for the Seattle Seahawks fans, and they're going to be like, ooh, now I see why the Vikings were so easily willing to move on from Sam, because if this keeps up in the playoffs, it's not looking good. And like I said, I think that Sam Darnold is going to improve this year. He is going to show some growth in big games. I just don't think he's going to go from collapse to superstar. I think he's just going to go from collapse to maybe mediocre, which is something that his team can overcome. And if his team can overcome and be all-time defensively, and his special teams can bail him out and give him some short fields in order to kind of get back into games and manage his inconsistency in big games where his confidence is clearly still a factor, they can definitely beat a wild card team and win in the divisional round, maybe make it and lose in the title game. But regardless, I don't think that he's got the ability yet to put on the cape, and that's something that you need that JJ has. He just is inconsistent at it. He puts on the cape, and it's more like I'm trying to think of a Superman movie where I guess there's in every Superman movie there's that montage where he puts on the cape and the outfit for the first time, and he's struggling to learn how to fly, and he can't stop himself, and he's all these things. He can't control his everything. But guess what? Because he has that ability to elevate and become and put on the cape and take that responsibility, eventually Superman becomes Superman and he becomes unbeatable. It's only when kryptonite gets put on him where he reverts, right? And that's what a great analogy when we think about quarterbacks, right? Even the best quarterbacks, when they get punched in the mouth, and when another team goes into that game and has a game plan, kryptonite, for lack of a better way of saying it, to shut them down or make it hard on them, sometimes they struggle. The great quarterbacks still find ways to win through that struggle. They don't throw game-ending interceptions in title games, or they don't go in against a rookie-led quarterback team like Jared Goff did last year and completely melt down. They still find ways to push through that adversity and win, which is something that Sam Darnold is still learning to become. And I think that through the growth that he has in the later part of the season this year, and then through the growth in the playoffs, I think that he's going to take a next step next year, and he's going to be maybe not mediocre like I'm expecting him to be here, but maybe slightly above average. And when you're there, Ooh, now you got something to work with. Now it's, can all the chips fall into place? Can all the teams that can give you a hard run for it get eliminated before you face them, and get that perfect situation in order for your slightly above average quarterback plus your extremely good team to overcome and make it to the Super Bowl and potentially win it? Yeah, that's something that would be on the table, I think, starting next year. I don't think it's going to be this year. And I think this game against the Rams proved that, because there was a couple, I think two of the interceptions were off tip, so like you can kind of excuse those, but the first one where he's falling away, and like classic Sam Darnold, bro, throw that away. You still try to force it while falling backwards. Like, what are you doing your best Jordan Love impression? Like, I just don't get it. Why do you make these laughable low lights? Remember last year there was a time where of all guys, Ed Ingram, creates all the space, and he opens the space for him to roll out to the right, and then he freaking scrambles back into the pass rush and takes a sack. It's like, bro, or it's like that. Like, how many bad freaking interceptions have we seen from Sam? And you're just like, what are you doing, bro? And then this year, at the start of the season, when they're about to win the game, you fumble on the 1 yard line to give the game away when you're literally in the moment to win. It's just, he still has those extremely laughable lowlights, and I think it might always be part of his DNA, I guess you could say. But at the very least, to learn how to keep it in check so you don't have that many a game and cost your team a win. You know what I mean? And so we saw a lot of the old Sam Darnold appear here, and there were drives where he was just non-existent, and the reason why they struggled. But it is what it is. He is a guy that's still in the later parts of his reclamation project. Everybody wants to think that he's graduated and he's now some all-time quarterback, which I just don't think he is that yet. He needs to prove it and show growth in tough games and in the playoffs before I can say, okay, he's finally graduated. He has now done his reclamation. He is now just a great quarterback that can face adversity and pull it out the fire when he needs to, because he just doesn't crumble. He doesn't have those things that was plaguing him before, and it is what it is, expected, right? And then going on to Sunday night snoozer. Oh my God. Did anybody else find themselves doing one of these last night? I felt like I almost passed out like 3 or 4 times. I was like, this is so boring. And it goes to show, like I was saying in the weekly picks video, when I talked about these two teams, I was like, I think both these teams are extremely flawed in different ways. And that's going to be the reason why they struggle in the playoffs late in the season and whatnot. And we saw big game Goff. It's funny to me. I was like, oh my goodness, the Eagles only have a 3-point lead, and with just a 3-point lead, they got big game Goff to show up. I was like, oh my gosh, this is embarrassing. But like I've been saying, Jared Goff is who I think he is. He's been in the league long enough to where I can't give him the grace that, oh, he's still just a young guy learning how to make it in this league. He's past that. He's well past that. And he is what he is now. Okay. We're in the age of sports psychology. And if you haven't been able to overcome these mental hurdles, I think there's a massive problem. And like I said, I don't think he's going to be a Super Bowl caliber quarterback or winning quarterback. I think he's firmly on the path to becoming this generation's Phillip Rivers, or name any quarterback that has elite stats in the regular season and then does nothing in the playoffs and just crumbles. That's what Jared Goff is. They call him big game Goff because when big games come up, he shrivels, right? In the playoffs, his QBR rating drops a whole 10 points. His freaking completion percentage drops from the 70s into the 60s. It's just who he is. It's a mental barrier that he just doesn't have. He doesn't have that delusional confidence that JJ McCarthy has. He doesn't have the ability to put on the Superman cape like other great quarterbacks like Tom Brady or any great like Baker Mayfield or any guy like that has. He just doesn't have those intangibles that you need in order to be successful. And if you want to win with a quarterback like that, and you want to win like the Baltimore Ravens did with Trent Dilfer, you have to have an extremely above average defense. And that's never been the Detroit Lions way. They've always had a competent defense, maybe a slightly above average defense, but they're not all time. I don't think we've ever been like, oh my goodness, the Lions defense. So the last 2-3 years, I don't think anybody's been like, these guys are these guys the second coming of the 85 Bears? Are they the second coming of the Baltimore Ravens defense? No, nobody ever says that about them. They're a great defense. I'll give it that. But what they are is an offense first team where their team needs to build a massive lead and they win through by playing from ahead, because they really put the pressure on your opponents. And when the pressure gets to certain players, certain quarterbacks, they wilt and they thrive on that. And as they see the momentum pile more on their side and they see their opposing teams wilting under the pressure that they put on them, they run away with games. And they're not the type of team that just let off the gas and win by 10 points or 14 points. They'll run up the score on you. And that's just who they are, because they want to instill that fear in the rest of the league, knowing that, oh man, if we get behind against these guys, it might be wraps for us. And expected. That's what I said. I didn't when I think, what, I did say that I didn't think it was going to be a low scoring game, but I thought it was going to be like at 21-17 sort of thing, 21-14 sort of win for the Eagles. But the main factor was that I think that the defense, when a defense does a really good job of putting it on Jared Goff, he just crumbles. He becomes inaccurate. He rushes his reads. He throws the ball inaccurate, and we saw that against our Vikings, where we had that perfect storm, and we were able to completely destroy him and put him in a big game. And when you put Jared Goff in a big game situation, he melts down, and we saw that again last night, and it was pretty embarrassing, for a team that's got Super Bowl aspirations. I don't know. The red flag should be definitely in full view right now. Because like I said, this team is what they are. I think that they had their best shot last year when they had Ben Johnson. I did a video called or a live where I talked about how this Detroit Lions team is not like us. And I compared the history of the Minnesota Vikings to the history of the Detroit Lions. And they're the same type of team. They always decide to build on swampland. When they have 500 feet to the right, they have solid ground. And they go, oh, you know what? We got this. We're just going to keep putting the Band-Aids on things, and we're going to break through. And they just don't. Their best peak was in the Barry Sanders era with a 7-year peak. They made the NFC title game and lost. They've never won an NFC championship, and it is what it is. They're the rerun kings. They're extremely flawed, and usually when you go look at every single run, this is how it goes. They stack up a bunch of young talent because they're always on a last place schedule. And then all of a sudden they get really good because they have all this young, raw talent. They bring in someone that kind of reels them in together, a bunch of coaches that kind of brings it together. And then they make a couple of runs. And when they can't break through, those coaches that were the difference makers, they start leaving. And then after the coaches leave and they start overpaying their roster, then they start losing their glue guys. And then their big name stars start seeing the writing on the wall, and they move and they take off and they go, you know what? I better get out of here before it becomes really ugly. And then they become a shell of their team. And they're back on a last place schedule. It's literally what they've done year after year after year. And it's because of their organization. It starts with their ownership and their upper management. The way that they decide to build teams, hire coaches, do all the things that they do is the root cause of why they are who they are. And we're starting to see it now. Oh, last week, Dan Campbell, he's a play calling savant. And now this morning, everybody's criticizing Dan Campbell for his play calling was atrocious. Guys, This is what their team is. They've lost their brain trust. This is why I said I outlined it in that video. I go back and look at that live where the thumbnail is Vikings fans versus Lions fans, and it says not like us. And go watch it and go see, go fast, even if you have to just fast forward to the section where I go over how their timeline goes. And I said they're right in this stage where after they lose their brain trust, is what I call it. The minds that actually make them competitive, and how they're gonna now be overpaid, and they're gonna start on their downward spiral, you know. And just look at it. Look at what they did with the Matt Stafford era. Look at what they did with in the Barry Sanders era. It's like clockwork. You just do the research, to take the time. I know it takes a while. It took me a while to really analyze what was going on, because I didn't want to just come up and just start trash talking for no reason. I wanted to make sure that I knew what I was talking about and there was actual evidence to back what I was saying. And the more the season goes on, that's what we're seeing from these Detroit Lions. Jared Goff isn't what Colin Cowherd said he is. He's not a Super Bowl caliber quarterback. He's not a future Hall of Famer. In the modern age, from 2000 and on, if you don't have a Super Bowl, you don't make the Hall of Fame. And if any one of those early 2000s, early 2010 guys that are now retired, like Phillip Rivers, Matt Ryan, stuff like that, they're going to have to be, waiting for a year, like a weak year, where they don't have a lot of Hall of Fame, Hall of Fame competitors or people to challenge them with really good stats, where they're going to be like, well, it's going to be a weak Hall of Fame draft class, or whatever they call it, right? Where quarterbacks that don't have a Super Bowl are going to get into the Hall of Fame. And, because Jared Goff is who he is, and when he retires a non-Super Bowl winning quarterback, he's going to have to wait behind Phillip Rivers, Matt Ryan, and name all the quarterbacks that are from history that are sitting there waiting for their opportunity to sneak into the Hall of Fame with their elite regular season stats. So it is what it is. Expected for all these three teams. I said that I think my bold prediction with the Lions was I think they'd be lucky to win 10 games this year. I think I was a little bit overzealous when I thought maybe next year is when they truly fall off and they're in that 9, 10, 11 win where they're struggling really bad and we can really see what they are. They might win 11 this year. They might win 12. I'm not sure. We'll see how Jared Goff plays in big games now that he's rattled so early in the season. And we'll see how it plays out, and with the lack of their offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators that were definitely some of the key factors to their success. We'll see how they bounce back and see how they do the rest of the season. So, it is what it is. And I'm excited to see how it plays out, especially for all these three guys and for totally different reasons. Now, let us go into the weekly games and briefly talk about these games now, because I really want to react to these games. Man, the Dolphins Commanders games, what an up and down game, man. If you are just a football fan and you just did not care who won, you just wanted to see some just awesome situations, whether they were, hilarious mishaps and bloopers and things that just make you laugh and go, wow, this is a heck of a game. You got that out of this game. There was moments where it was like really good football, and there was moments where it was just really bad football. There was moments where like, oh my gosh, are they going to complete a comeback here? Oh my goodness, is the field goal going to come up? It was just chock full of literally everything the good, the bad, the ugly, the atrocious, the hilarious. Literally, it was a bag full of everything. And I did pick the Dolphins to win. I wasn't going to gamble on Marcus Mariota, but you know what? He almost proved me wrong, and he actually played a pretty decent game, especially late, although he did, struggle at times here. Both teams did, but it was a fun game for so many different reasons. So, man, if you guys got to watch that in full, awesome. It was freaking incredible. Moving on to the Panthers Falcons. Man, did I get this one wrong? And I guess not really. Maybe a little bit, because I thought that the Falcons were gonna we're going to be at home. They're going to be able to be more they were going to have more energy, more passion, just have a chip on their shoulder and just going to come out strong and overwhelm these Panthers early and make it so these Panthers were in a situation that they're typically not great at is coming back from a huge deficit, right? I just assume that we would see a lot of Bijan, a lot of Tyler Algier, and it was just going to early, and it was just going to create a big lead and something unmanageable for the Panthers. But hey, this game ended up being a fantastic game as well. It was back and forth. We saw some great things, great offense. It sucks to see Penix get injured because I hate injuries. I cannot stress it enough. I hate injuries. But, you know, old Kirk Cousins did his best best to kind of pull it out the fire, but he ain't that guy anymore. We definitely milked the best out of him. And I am so glad that we moved on from him when we did, because it was able to give us the path that we're on now, where we're having to learn through a path that we've never had before. We've never had a high lottery pick, and we've never rebuilt the right way, and we've made a lot of mistakes along the way, and we're growing for it. And I like to see this part of the story because it's building us to be the team that we want to be, and we can't just magically flip a switch and become that, right? So I'm super glad that we moved on from Kirk, because man, imagine last year having to deal with this version of Kirk. Man, we would have lost. We would have won like 7 games. Oh, that would have been ugly. Oh my goodness. I can't even imagine. Oh my goodness. Can you guys imagine having Kirk Cousins last year? We would have won like 6 games, 7 games, maybe 5 games. Yeah, we would have had an easier schedule, and JJ McCarthy would have had an easier development path. But you know what? I'd rather him have the harder path, because he's going to have some harder lessons to learn. And I think because of his mindset and his work ethic, it's going to elevate him faster than a lot of people expected. But going back to the Panthers Falcons game, absolutely a banger of a game, an all-time classic. It was awesome to see these two divisional rivals go at it the way that they did. I wish I would have got the pick right and the Falcons would have won, but it is what it is. It was a great game nonetheless. The Buccaneers versus the Bills. Now, this is a game, when I watch the Vikings game, I usually watch Red Zone, but I really wanted to see, because I'm a huge Baker Mayfield fan. I had to pick the Bills in this game, because I just knew that they were going to come out motivated and looking like they were going to beat anybody that was in front of them, regardless of who it was. And that's exactly what happened. Josh Allen with incredible video game numbers, 3 passing touchdowns, 3 rushing touchdowns. It was an awesome game to see. It was a valiant effort from my man Baker Mayfield. Incredibly fun game, and man, it was awesome. It sucks if you're a Bucks fan, because you really wanted Baker to pull it off at the end. But it just wasn't in the cards. And the Bills at home are just a different animal, especially when they're motivated like they did after such an embarrassing loss last week. And it reminded them that, like, hey, you know what? Against some of these best teams too, we got something here, and don't be sleeping on us. Or maybe they want, maybe what the Bills actually need, if they want to actually win a Super Bowl, is to be in people's blind spots, so that they don't think they're anything to worry about, so that when they do face them in big games in the playoffs, they just handle them and go, oh, you forgot about us. Good thing we didn't forget about you, because it was a great game between the Bills and the Bucks. And oh man, what a beatdown from the Jaguars. Ooh, I really like what's going on with Jacksonville. I see a lot of us in them, with Liam Cohen being part of the Sean McVay, Mike Shanahan, Kevin O'Connell tree. They all are from that same learning background. And so when I see them play, I see a lot of us from last year, and a lot of us from year 1 with KOC in them this year. They're they they have some really, really showtime situations, but they also have some really bad moments as well. But that's part of growth. It's a new coach. They're a lot of their misfortune comes from things that they have put upon themselves, and that is just a big sign of a developing team, and transitioning into a new philosophy, and trying to shed the previous thing, right? When you have all this from the existing guys, right? Trevor Lawrence, everybody that's still returning from the previous regime, it's difficult to put away all the muscle memory that you've developed over the past few years, and try to change that and to do things the way that the new regime wants, right? So we see a lot of these uncharacteristic mistakes in situations where they kind of revert to old ways of doing things when it's not what they want to be doing now, which is why when things work perfectly, they're beating really good teams, and when things work against them, and or when they work against themselves, they end up losing games where a lot of people think they should have won. Awesome, awesome game for I think MVP from the Real Sports Podcast, because he's a Jags fan. So incredible. I did pick the Chargers, and I think I was a little bit riding high on what I had seen from the previous week, where I expected the Chargers to struggle after Joe Alt um went down with the injury for the rest of the season. And you know what, now that I think about it, in my weekly picks, when I was talking about the Chargers in this game, I thought it was going to be a closer game, but I didn't think it was going to be like this, where they're just going to be totally inept, and I was saying, hey, when we brought Cam Robinson in last year after Christian Darrisaw went down, he had some games where he elevated and he looked really, really good. And then he had other games where he struggled, and other games where he was middle of the pack. And that just happens when you're kind of brought in at the last minute, and you just have to play off of your natural intuition, your natural talent, and just kind of run on the fly. Sometimes you're going to have growing pains. Sometimes everything's just going to fall into place. And I think that was one of these games where they just were not able to. It looked as bad as when Joe Walt went down and they had their other backup play in there, right? So things just weren't clicking like they were the previous week. And I think that's just going to be a roller coaster for them going forward. There's going to be games where they're just average when it comes to their O-line play, which will allow Justin Herbert to be all time. And then there's going to be games where, like last week, where they elevate and they're able to look like world beaters. And there's going to be times where they just, like this week, where they just look god awful. And it is what it is. That's what happens when you lose your star left tackle, and you have to bring in a trade deadline replacement, a guy that, it wasn't looking like he was going to be an incredible tackle to begin with, and is just thrust into the situation and having to do the best he can. So, I think they'll bounce back. I think they'll have some good games, some bad games. They might squeak into the wild card, or it might be the reason why they actually fall out of the playoffs. But you know what? It is what it is. And both these two teams are still in the hunt for it, right? So pretty good. We've gone over the Vikings, Bears in depth. Packers, Giants, man. These Giants, man, I keep picking them to be my upset team, because in situations like this, because everything that I thought would happen basically played out. If you guys watch my preview or my weekly picks, I said I feel like this game is going to be a lot closer than people think. I think that it's going to come down to the very end, and I'm just hoping that Jameis Winston, because I said it's going to be gunslinger versus gunslinger. I think I said that on the podcast on Saturday. But either way, I thought it was going to come down to the very end, and whoever finished off the last drive is going to win it. I'm just banking that it's going to be the Giants, and it almost came true. Man, what is going on with Green Bay? I think the problems are a lot deeper than people want to give credit. There is a lot of dysfunction in there. I just can't put my finger on it. I'm not entirely sure what's going on there. But as the season progresses, as these November, December games, I think it's going to become more and more evident. It's weird to see a guy that for the last few years, a coach like in Matt LaFleur, that everybody's been so high on and has been, touting, the best coach in the division, blah, 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 this and that, now is supposedly on the hot seat, and people are calling for him not to call plays. And, it's funny how when things go wrong, everybody just wants to get rid of you. Where have I seen that before? I can't remember. But it is what it is. Fans are emotional and they get the let their emotions and their what they don't know get the better of them. I still think Matt LaFleur is a good coach. He's just got a lot of he's experienced some late growing pains. He was a rookie quarterback that over a rookie coach that excelled based on the situation that he came into. And maybe the growing pains that he should have felt in the beginning of his coaching tenure are now he was saved from because he had such a great roster in front of him and things just kind of went his way, and now things aren't going his way and he's having to learn from him. And I think he's a great guy, a great coach, and I think that through this fire I think he will continue to develop and evolve and be a good coach going forward. I'm not gonna be the one to call for his firing because I just think that's stupid because he has proven a lot. His record shows for it. What he's done in the past has shown for it. And you can't just throw out the baby with the baby water, right? So it is what it is. And the Packers are back on track for the most part. And we'll see how they play out in the late November and December games. We'll see if, they're a work in progress. They have to go through these pains in order to address what's going on there. We don't know. We're not privy to be in the locker room with them. But you know what it is, what it is. The Giants gave them a heck of a game. Jameis Winston was almost on the sidelines eating a W at the end of the game. But it is what it is. Let's go. Let's go freaking Jameis Winston. Man, he's a heck of a motivator, man. Once he decides to retire, I hope he becomes a motivational speaker because I could listen to him for days. He's all energy. He's so much fun. And now moving on to the Bengals and Steelers, and I think this is I kind of almost accurately predicted this game. I said I don't think this game is going to go the way people think. I think the last matchup between these two are going to give a lot of people a false sense of security and thinking that the Bengals are going to do it again. I think that the last situation that they played in actually heavily benefited the Bengals, even though from the outside looking in, it looks like, oh, they just got Joe Flacco. He's only had 1 week with the team. Like, there's no way they're going to prepare and be able to do anything against this Steelers team. And then it's a Thursday night game where Mike Tomlin actually historically doesn't have the best games on Thursday night football. He needs a lot more preparation time. And as a result, the game was closer than it was and turned into a massive shootout, extremely fun game nonetheless. But it led to the advantage went to the Bengals because they was like, hey, we can't come up with an elaborate plan. We can't, do this, that. Let's just keep it simple, stupid. Let's freaking play backyard football when we can. Let's adjust at the line and just take advantage of these two superstar wide receivers and let the chips lie where they lie. And the Steelers, because they didn't have a well fleshed out game plan and they didn't have the preparation that they're accustomed to having, or any team accustomed to have when they play on Thursday night, they just weren't prepared. And it brought them down a little bit. And as a result, the Bengals were able to capitalize and come away with a win there. And I thought a lot of people were going to be like, oh man, Joe Flacco's got the Steelers number. He knows exactly how to pick that defense apart. You kidding me? You think with a whole week of preparation, Mike Tomlin isn't going to freaking figure out what you were doing to capitalize on that and take those things away? You guys don't know Mike Tomlin or the Steelers if you thought that was going to happen, because like I said, I thought it was going to be a one-sided game. I think I gave it a 10-point win. So it was a lot more than that, but it is what it is. The Bengals are who a lot of people think they are, and the Steelers are a decent team. Flawed and whatnot, but a decent team nonetheless. And we saw them handle the Bengals, and it was a pretty fun game. Moving on to the Texans versus the Titans. Oh my goodness! Did you guys see this game being this close? I didn't. I know that's for sure. Even though I knew that CJ Stroud wasn't going to be playing, I was like, they should still win by 10 points, right? Maybe even 14, right? I think that's what I said in my weekly picks video where I was like, I just don't I just cannot bank. Like there's one thing after trying to bank on the bump of firing your coach, and which is another reason why I picked the Giants is like, there's this statistical reality where a team elevates like 15-20% uh after they fire a coach mid-season, and they play a little bit more inspired, and they come out a little bit hot to just kind of prove that they are better than the narrative was saying. And it was, kind of throwing a little bit of salt on the previous coach to be like it was more him than us. And so that's far removed from the Titans. So the Titans are in this situation where they're just in purgatory right now. As much as I love Cam Ward, and I have been talking Cam Ward up all season, I really like the way that he throws balls. I like the way that he kind of can scramble and make things happen with his legs. But mechanically speaking, in the pocket, going through his progression, there's still a lot to learn, and he needs a whole new coaching regime in there, an offensive minded coach, to go in there and really help him grow in the right way, put him in the right situations, a quarterback coach that has the ability to develop a young guy and put him in situations to succeed, and put him in situations where he's going to have to face adversity in order to grow. A guy that's not going to shelter him and keep him like Callahan was doing. I feel like at times I was like, why are you not letting him do the things that he needs to do in order to be successful? Like, this doesn't make sense. There's a lot of just easy check downs that, like, you're not going to be a playoff team. You're not going to be a Super Bowl caliber team. Like, why are you trying to protect a season in which you should be just giving him as many learning experiences as possible and just trying to freaking be check down Charlie and not let him do anything? Like, how is he going to learn that way? You know what I mean? So it was very confusing. So I thought the Texans defense was going to be too much for them, but hey, you know what? They made a really good game out of it, and the Texans came away with a 3-point win. And wow, another good game. Probably not the all the bells and whistles, but if you were from each fan base, I feel like it gave you guys two different narratives. For the Titans, it's like, oh, you know what? We kind of hung in there a little bit, and we actually had a chance. That's more than we can say basically every game that we've played. So I think the Titans fans are hopefully seeing a little bit of a sunshine, or maybe you can see the little speck of light at the end of the tunnel there that's starting to seep in. And I think that if they make the right decision and hire someone appropriately for this organization, coaching staff wise, and then that coach brings in some really good coordinators and everything, I think that that there's a lot of potential here with the Titans. The Texans, man, I think that at this point, the Texans, I think we're left with a little bit different narrative here. It's like, I don't know if we are as good as we thought we were 2 years ago when we were taking the league by storm and people were calling them the Strouds. And just I think they're starting to realize that, whoa, we're more of a developmental team than an actual playoff caliber team. And I think the reality is starting to set in for some of these fans. If you go check out some of their content creators and their comment section, it's a lot of negativity. And I get it. When you have a quarterback that is an outlier in year one and then all of a sudden becomes worse than a rookie quarterback in year two, and it stings. It really stings. And a lot of soul searching is being done from that fan base, and it is what it is. This is part of growth. I don't know if they need to clean house and move on to a different coach or anything like that. Maybe D'Amico Ryans was the culture shift guy, the coach that brought in a different mindset and changed the culture. And now it's time to bring in a coach that can bring him to the next level and can bring that offensive mindedness and help develop their young quarterback. I don't know. I It's hard to say. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't like to really take hard stance when it comes to that, because there is still so much football to play, and I like to give people the chance to prove everybody wrong. And if CJ Stroud comes back from this concussion and they start putting good games together and he starts looking more and more like CJ Stroud of year one, and they end up finishing the season strong, then guess what? It's going to be obvious that they need to run with it, right? But if they continue to go this way and they still struggle and it becomes more and more of a train wreck, then it's going to have to be on their ownership. And I can't make that decision. I don't get paid millions of dollars to have those kind of insights or have the experience in the NFL world to be able to judge that. I can only give my 2 cents from a business background, a marketing background, a develop like a training background. So, time will tell when it comes to them. And then moving on to the 49ers and Cardinals. Ooh, what a game. The Cardinals made a little bit of a game for it, but 49ers fans, man, you guys have got to be happy with what's going on here in this league with your team, because the 49ers are a team that just has definitely learned how to face adversity. If for you Minnesota Vikings fans, do you want this is the type of team that you want, right? Look at how well they're doing despite injuries, despite things not going their right way. They always are willing to fight. They believe in themselves and they find ways to fight adversity and then overcome it. Right? That's the team that we're becoming right now. The 49ers are just way ahead of where we are. I know when KOC got hired and everything, everybody was like, oh, it's going to be 49ers 2.0 over in Minnesota. And for the most part, I guess you could kind of say that. But we are in the similar path where, we've learned to face adversity and we're moving forward with it. Right. So this is what it looks like when you have that foundation and you have that self-belief and you have that ability to draw upon adversity that you face in the past in order to overcome it in the future, right? They find ways to win when other teams completely collapse in the situation, right? So it's incredible to see what the 49ers are doing. I don't know if the playoff run is going to be as deep as people would hope. They have the ability to overcome that adversity and find ways to win, and they have a great coach in doing so. But the injuries to their superstars just might be too much to overcome in the playoffs. When you're playing teams that are well-rounded, that have a full litany of experience and have been pushing for deep playoff runs year after year, it's going to be hard to beat those type of teams, but maybe this year's the year where everything is so up and down and they're able to overcome. I don't know. The 49ers are an awesome example of why it's important to focus on the right things to develop in your foundation. They've developed a solid roster, a solid defense. They have a great coach, and they have a tremendous amount of talent. And even and then facing adversity, they've learned to overcome and fight through it. And it's incredible to see, so awesome win for the 49ers. We already talked about Seahawks, Rams, and wow, Ravens and Browns. Man, everybody expected Showtime Lamar to be back, but a win is a win. As much as they struggled a little bit here. They were able to close it out in the end because good teams find a way to win against bad teams. And I don't know. I'm not going to throw any shade towards Shadur. It was really nice to actually finally see him hit the field. It is what it is. A young quarterback out there, a late draft pick, a guy that hasn't seen the field, that hasn't been able to beat the quarterbacks out ahead of him for a starting position or a backup position, is supposed to look that way. I'm not going to criticize or condemn the kid. I just don't think that for him to become the player that he believes he is, or people want to see him become, it's not going to be with the Cleveland Browns. It just isn't. It's going to take another team that's going to, buy in on him, win or lose, and decide to go through the fire with them and through the growing pains, just like our Vikings are going through with JJ, and let him grow through playing. It is just what it is. And which team that's going to be, I don't know. There's a whole bunch of bottom feeders in this league that are struggling at that quarterback position that might look to pick him up. There might be a middling team out there that looks at it like, we're not going to, over the next 2 years where there's a potential successor or a good lottery pick quarterback or someone that we could actually go for or trade up for. We might not get our guy. So we might just have to go with Shador and just live with the growing pains. I don't know which team that's going to be. I think it's a really, really weird situation. I just don't know what the heck the Browns are doing with Shador. It makes very little sense to me. Um, when it comes to business sense, not like, I guess it makes sense when you look at it when in the X's and O's. Hey, he can't even do the stuff to be able to run the practice squad. He's not even taking reps. Like, obviously he's so deficient in so many areas that they're not going to waste time weekly on him because it's just not worth it. They have other guys ahead of them that are capable of doing that. So they're going to go with those guys and help develop them. Right. But now Dylan Gabriel is in concussion protocol and he may not be back next week, and they're going to have to game plan for him, and they're going to have to give him reps, and they're going to have to see what this kid has. And, as a football fan, I want to see what this kid has, good or bad. I want, like always, I want to see them go through the fire. I want to see what they can do to justify the hype or their potential ceiling. I want to see it, or I want to see them fail and see, hey, at least he got an honest shot and got a full season, a full 2 seasons, whatever it is, where you can honestly be like, hey, you know what? That has been way more. He's gotten way more starts and whatnot, and he's just not progressing, So I just want to see what this kid has. And, hopefully next week we get to see more of that. And then moving on to the Chiefs and Broncos, man, like I've been saying before the season started, I said this season was the season where the Chiefs are no longer going to be looking like the unbeatable, invincible Goliath team that they had been in the past, where when you face them, you thought to yourself, man, we really need to play, like literally everybody on the team needs to put on the cape and play better than they usually do in order to beat this team, because they just are that good. you know they're not that anymore. I said this is going to be the first season where they look beatable, and they do. But I also said that that division is now wide open, and for the foreseeable future, unless they do some great stuff in retooling their team and bringing in some young talent and bringing that core up to par like they were before, in order to developing into the roster that they had once before and become that invincible team again. Unless they do that, I think they're just going to be continuing to ride their success and their superstars, and they're just gonna, regress to a really good team that, if they make it to the playoffs, with experience and their wily vets, they're gonna be able to steal some games. And hey, you never know, they might be able to sneak their way into a Super Bowl and steal one before the dynasty can be officially classified as over. So it is an interesting situation to be in. The Broncos definitely made it a lot closer than I thought it would be. The one thing that I said, I did pick the Broncos to win this game. I thought the defense was going to be too much for the Chiefs and they would struggle. I believe I said it was going to be a race to 24 points. Whoever could get there first was going to be the winner. It ended up being a 22-19 game, and the defense ended up being the deciding factor. There's a reason why we say defense wins championships, right? It's because that is the most important factor when you want to be successful in the postseason. And we saw that in full force. Now, I don't know if what the Broncos are right now offensively, if that's a winning formula for them to win in the playoffs. I can't tell you that it is one way or another, but probabilities usually tend to favor that not being a winning formula, where you're only coming away with close wins, coming away with fourth quarter heroics. goes back to year one with KOC, where we were winning a whole bunch of one-score games and coming up with these just improbable comeback wins where in the playoffs it just wasn't something that you can count on. And then we walked into a buzzsaw with the Giants and got embarrassed, right? And it just goes to show that you need to have a well-balanced team, and it has to start with your defense. And that defense that we had in year one with KOC was hot garbage. Man, I wish we would have had Brian Flores that year. We may have been able to at least make it past the Giants that year. Yeah, but anyways, it is what it is. We are who we are now, and we are growing in that way. But maybe everything that happens throughout the season is going to help develop Bo Nix's confidence or his ability to be more consistent 4 quarters in a row, because like, my goodness, what is going on with freaking I just want to see a full 4 quarters from this young man. I guess you can call it the sophomore slump, that he is going through some growing pains because the tape is out on him and teams are knowing how to play against Bo Nix, but it is what it is. And then we don't have to go into the Lions Eagles because we already went through that. Hey, what's going on? Our fearless leader Rap is in the building. What is going on, brother? But yeah, it is what it is. A fun week of football, and man, I am excited to see how this season progresses. I'm extremely happy with my team. I'm happy on the trajectory that we're on, because I'm of the perspective of development. And like I said, I believe JJ McCarthy is a resilient learner. He's the type of guy that he's he's not a savant, he's not a natural, but he's a type of kid that has got all the intangibles, can put the hard work in, and he's got to learn through mistakes and adversity. And that's what he's doing. So I hope the rest of the season he gets all the learning experiences possible needed, and he comes up with some fantastic flashes the rest of the way. And then next year I can finally start having some actual expectations for the young man and seeing what he can do. I hope that the last couple games in the season he's showing more and more consistency, and I think if my intuition is right on JJ McCarthy, I think the last couple games we're going to look at him and go like, holy moly, he's not as raw as he was. He's no longer just 30% efficient. He's now closer to 50% or maybe 60%. And at that point, now we're looking at, wow, this offseason might be a big step forward. And hopefully we can see some big growth from the young man in year 2, where I think we can actually start having some expectations for this team. Like I said, I didn't have any real expectations outside of, let's give our young quarterback all the time, all the situations. I don't think he needs to be benched. I don't think he needs to be pulled. I think that, just like Kurt Warner said during his tenure when he was Eli Manning's backup, if he's in the situation where he's getting blown out or he's struggling, you don't pull the kid, because the second you do that, you allow doubt to creep in. You put him on that sideline and he starts thinking, does my coach not believe in me? Does this organization not think that I can do it? And then that doubt seeps in, and then it just affects everything. Like Kurt Warner says, young guys like that need to be left in there, and they need to be given the opportunity to learn. And guess what happened this week? He didn't get pulled, and they gave him the opportunity to try to figure it out. And he came up with a touchdown, just wasn't able to do the clock management things, right? Like Tom Brady is used to doing in those situations, knowing what was on the line, making sure that when he threw that touchdown, there was only like 15 seconds left on the clock. So there was no chance for them to do anything, right? It is what it is. That's what happens when you have a young developmental quarterback. Everybody wants to draft a lottery pick quarterback and develop him until it's time to develop him and go through the growing pains. But, just be happy with what we got, man. We got to beat the Lions. We got the monkey off our back in a developmental year. Let's be real, guys. JJ McCarthy gave you guys that. So let's be happy with what we got. What's that line from the song? If you can't be with the one that you want, love the one that you have, right? just have fun. Just buckle in and enjoy the ride because it is a roller coaster. I told you guys it was going to be a roller coaster. I told you it was going to be a lot of growing pains. It is what it is, guys. I hope you guys have a great one. Take care.